The smell hit Sierra first. Charred wood, melted plastic, and something else, something that made her stomach twist. She pulled up to the burned-out shell of Mickey's bar, her squad car crunching over broken glass. Hell of a way to start Monday morning, she muttered, grabbing her camera from the passenger seat. The old biker bar had been empty for months. Now it was a blackened skeleton against the desert sunrise. Yellow tape fluttered in the morning breeze like warning flags. Detective Valdez? Officer Thompson jogged over, his uniform already stained with ash. Fire department says it started around a.m., no witnesses, but they found something you need to see. Sierra followed him through the debris. Her boots scraped against twisted metal and chunks of fallen ceiling. In what used to be the main room, she stopped. There, Thompson pointed to a corner where the flames had died down first. A piece of paper lay pinned under a fallen beam, burned around the edges, but the sender was readable. Sierra crouched down, careful not to disturb the scene. The handwriting made her breath catch. Fire dances in the darkness, consuming all but truth. Poetry. Messy, urgent handwriting scrawled in black ink. The words tugged at something deep in her memory. A voice in the dark, leather jacket warm against her cheek. The rumble of a motorcycle engine. Bag this, she told Thompson, standing up to fast. Priority evidence. But her mind was already 3 years back. A roadside diner at a.m., rain drumming on the roof. And him, wild dark hair, eyes like storm clouds, fingers stained with ink as he wrote in a worn journal. What are you writing? She'd asked. Truth, he'd said, not looking up. The only thing that matters. She'd been off duty that night, driving home from visiting her sister. He'd been hunched over coffee and notebook paper, looking like trouble wrapped in denim and leather. She should have kept driving. Instead, she'd sat down across from him. You're not from around here, she'd said. He'd smiled, then crooked, dangerous, just passing through. I don't stick around anywhere long enough to put down roots. They'd talked until sunrise. About books, about the desert, about the way some people were born restless. He'd read her pieces of his poetry, words that painted pictures of loneliness and freedom and the beauty found in broken things. When dawn broke, he'd walked her to her car. Will I see you again? She'd asked. Probably not, he'd said, but he'd kissed her anyway, soft and fierce and full of goodbye. She'd watched his Harley disappear down the highway, taking his name with him. All she had left was the memory of his voice and the way her heart had hammered when he leaned close to read her something he'd written. Now that same handwriting was evidence in her arson case. Detective? Thompson's voice snapped her back to the present. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. She forced her voice steady. Has anyone canvassed for witnesses yet? Working on it. But this place has been dead for months. Nearest neighbor is half a mile out. Sierra nodded, but she wasn't really listening. She was thinking about stolen time in a late-night diner, about the way someone could burn into your memory and never really leave. Keep me updated on the scene, she said. I need to run this evidence back to the lab. She was walking toward her car when the sound made her freeze. Low, familiar, like thunder rolling in from a clear sky. A motorcycle engine. Sierra turned slowly. At the edge of the crime scene tape, a man sat on a black Harley. Even from a distance, she could see the dark hair that needed cutting, the leather jacket that had seen to many miles. He wasn't hiding. He was watching her, bold as sunlight. When their eyes met, he smiled. That same crooked grin that had haunted her dreams for 3 years. Rafe. He lifted one hand in a casual wave, like they were old friends meeting for coffee instead of detective and suspect at a crime scene. Then he revved the engine once, a sound that made her heart skip, and sat back to wait. The burned poetry in her evidence bag suddenly felt heavier. Sierra's radio crackled. Detective Valdez, you need backup out there? She stared across the distance at the man who'd disappeared from her life like smoke. The man whose words had just been found in a pile of ashes. Not yet, she said into the radio, never taking her eyes off him. But stay close. The interrogation room felt smaller with Rafe in it. Sierra had seen him walk in all loose confidence and worn leather, like he owned the place instead of being a suspect in an arson investigation. Now he sat across from her, those storm gray eyes never leaving her face. Coffee? She offered, keeping her voice professional. Black like my soul, he said, then laughed at his own joke. Sorry, couldn't resist. She poured 2 cups from the machine in the corner, buying herself time to think. 3 years, and he still made her pulse race. She hated that about herself. So, she said, sitting down and opening his file. Rafe Morrison, age 32, no permanent address. Home is wherever I park my bike. And where have you been parking it lately? He leaned back in his chair, studying her. You know, Detective Valdez, you're even prettier than I remembered. Heat flashed up her neck. This is a criminal investigation, Mr. Morrison. I'd appreciate if you'd answer your questions. Right. He took a sip of coffee. I've been in Phoenix the last 2 weeks. Before that, Flagstaff. Before that, nowhere you'd know. Can anyone verify that? Motel clerks, diner waitresses, bartenders who serve lonely hearts and broken dreams. He tilted his head. You want their names? Or are you going to trust me? Trust is earned, and I haven't earned it. His voice went softer. Have I, Sierra? The way he said her name made her stomach flip. She forced herself to look down at the evidence photos spread between them. This was found at the scene. Rafe leaned forward to look at the burned paper. His face changed. Surprise, then something darker. Where exactly did you find this? I'm asking the questions here. That's my handwriting, he said slowly. But I didn't write those words. Sierra's pen stopped moving. Excuse me? I said I didn't write it. He looked up at her. Someone's copying my style, my handwriting. Hell, even the way I phrase things. He ran a hand through his hair. This is good. Too good. Whoever did this has been studying me. That's convenient. His jaw tightened. You think I'm lying? I think you're a drifter with no alibi who writes poetry about fire. And now there's a fire with your poetry at the scene. Look closer, he said quietly. At what? The words? The rhythm. I don't write about consuming truth. I write about finding it. He leaned across the table, close enough that she could smell leather and road dust and something indefinably male. Read my real work, Sierra. Then tell me I wrote that. Her breath caught at his nearness. This was exactly why she shouldn't be handling this case. He scrambled her professional instincts, made her want to believe him just because of the way he looked at her. She forced herself to lean back. Your real work? I've got journals full of it. 3 years worth since. He paused. Since the last time I was here. The admission hung between them. So he remembered that night too. Of course he did. Why did you leave? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Because staying would have ruined us both, he said simply. You had a life here, a career. I'm not the kind of man who fits into anyone else's plans. And now someone's trying to frame me for arson, and the only cop I trust is sitting across from me looking like she'd rather throw me in a cell than help me. Sierra stared at him. The smart thing would be to book him, let the evidence speak for itself. But something in his voice, in the way he'd looked at that burned paper. If you're innocent, prove it. Rafe reached into his jacket. Sierra's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon, but he was only pulling out a folded piece of paper. He set it on the table between them. What's that? Something I found this morning. Slipped under my motel room door. He smoothed it out carefully. Take a look. Sierra stared at the paper. More poetry, same handwriting style, but this one made her blood run cold. The fire calls to fire, consuming what it loves most. At the bottom, in different ink, someone had written, she burns brighter than the rest. This wasn't in evidence, she said, her voice barely steady. No, Rafe said, because whoever's doing this didn't leave it at a crime scene. They left it for me, a message. His gray eyes were serious now, all teasing gone. Someone knows about us, Sierra, about that night 3 years ago, and they're using it. Sierra's mind raced. The handwriting was too similar to be coincidence. But the words, the phrasing now that she looked closer, something felt off about both pieces. Why would someone frame you specifically? I don't know. Maybe because I'm easy to blame. A drifter, no TIs, no one to vouch for me. He leaned forward again. Or maybe because framing me gets them close to you. The thought made her skin crawl. That's quite a theory. It's not a theory if it's true. His hand moved across the table, fingers almost touching hers. Let me help you catch whoever's really doing this. You can't what? Trust your instincts? Trust me? His voice dropped to a whisper. Or you can't admit that you're glad I'm back. Before she could answer, he was standing up. Think about it, detective, but don't think too long. Something tells me whoever's playing games with us isn't done yet. He was almost to the door when she called out, Rafe. He turned back. Don't leave town. That crooked smile returned. Wouldn't dream of it. I've got unfinished business here. The door closed behind him, leaving Sierra alone with evidence that didn't quite fit and a heart that was beating too fast. She picked up the paper he'd left behind and studied the handwriting again. She burns brighter than the rest. A chill ran down her spine. This wasn't just about framing Rafe. Someone was watching her too. Sierra's computer screen glowed in the dim light of her office. 3 hours of digging into Rafe Morrison's past had given her more questions than answers. The man was a ghost. No credit cards, no permanent address, no social media footprint. But he did leave a trail. Hospital records, police reports, local news stories. Always helping, never staying. Denver. Pulled 2 kids from a burning apartment building. Santa Fe. Organized volunteers during wildfire evacuations. Tucson testified as witness in an arson case, helped catch the real culprit. Either he's the unluckiest guy alive, she muttered to herself, or he's drawn to fire like a moth. Her phone buzzed. Text message from unknown number. Turn on the news. Channel 7. Sierra grabbed the remote from her desk drawer. The local news anchor's serious face filled the screen. Another suspicious fire, this time in Millerville, just 30 miles north. The abandoned warehouse was fully engulfed when fire crews arrived. Sierra's blood went cold. She grabbed her keys and badge, already moving toward the door. Her phone rang before she made it to the parking lot. Detective Valdez, it's happening again. Rafe's voice tense. You saw the news? I'm heading there now. Wait for me. I'm already on the road. This is police business, Rafe, and I'm the one being framed for it. That makes it my business too. The roar of his motorcycle engine came through the phone. Besides, you might need a ride. What's that supposed to mean? Your squad car's got for flat tires. Sierra spun around. Sure enough, her patrol car sat on for rims, rubber shredded and scattered across the asphalt. Son of a parking lot camera's been spray painted black too, Rafe continued. Whoever's doing this wanted to make sure you couldn't follow the evidence trail alone. A chill ran down her spine. Someone had been here, at the police station, watching her. This is escalating, she said. Yeah, and I'm guessing it won't be the last surprise. The engine noise grew louder. I'm 2 minutes out. You coming or not? Sierra looked at her disabled car, then at the empty parking lot. Every instinct told her to call for backup, follow procedure. But backup would take 20 minutes and evidence went cold fast. One condition, she said. This is my investigation. You follow my lead. Deal. And Rafe, if you're playing me, I'm not. His voice went soft. I swear on my mother's grave, Sierra, I'm not your guy. 2 minutes later, the Harley rumbled into the parking lot. Rafe tossed her a helmet and moved forward on the seat. Hop on, detective. Sierra hesitated. The smart thing would be to wait for backup. The safe thing. But whoever was doing this was already 2 steps ahead, and safe wasn't going to catch them. She swung her leg over the bike. Hold tight, Rafe said, and gunned the engine. The world became wind and speed and the solid warmth of his back against her chest. Sierra had ridden motorcycles before police training, a brief rebellious phase in college. But not like this. Not pressed against someone who rode like he was born to it, who took curves like they were dance moves and made the machine sing. She should have been thinking about the case. Instead, she found herself noticing how perfectly she fit against him, how her arms circled his waist like they belonged there. 40 minutes later, they pulled up to the Millerville fire scene. The warehouse was still smoking. Fire trucks scattered around it like toys. Sierra climbed off the bike, her legs unsteady. You okay? Rafe asked, pulling off his helmet. Fine, she lied. The ride had been overwhelming, in ways that had nothing to do with speed. Fire Chief Martinez recognized her from previous cases. Detective Valdez, what brings you out here? Might be connected to the Mickey's bar fire. Mind if I take a look? Be my guest. But watch your step. Structure's still unstable. Sierra followed him toward the building, Rafe close behind. The damage was extensive, but something about the burn pattern nagged at her. Chief, where did the fire start? Northwest corner. Accelerant for sure. Burns to clean otherwise. They picked their way through the debris. In what used to be an office, Sierra stopped cold. Rafe, he was already looking where? She pointed. On the one wall that hadn't completely burned. Someone had used the flames themselves to char words into the wood. Sierra. Her name, 3 feet tall, burned black against the pale concrete. Okay, she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. That's new. Personal. Rafe's jaw was tight. Very personal. Sierra pulled out her camera. documenting the scene even though her hands shook slightly. Someone had planned this, lured her here, made sure she'd see it. Detective? Chief Martinez appeared in the doorway. Thought you should know. We found another piece of paper, partially burned, but readable. Sierra's heart sank as he handed her the evidence bag. More poetry, same forged handwriting. But this one was different. She runs to flame like moth to light, not knowing fire consumes the night. The hunter waits, the trap is set, the dance begins, she's in my net. This isn't about framing you anymore, Sierra said quietly. Rafe took the bag from her hands, studying the words. No, this is about you. And whoever's writing these knows we're working together now. Sierra's phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Did you like my message? The fire suits you. Next time, I'll make it more personal. We need to get you somewhere safe, Rafe said, reading over her shoulder. I'm not hiding from some psycho with a poetry fetish. Sierra knows. She turned to face him, chin up. I'm a cop. I don't run from threats, and I am the guy who is falling for a cop who is too stubborn for her own good. The words slipped out before he could stop them. They stared at each other in the smoky twilight. 3 years of unfinished business stretched between them like a live wire. Rafe. I know. Wrong time, wrong place. He ran a hand through his hair. But I can't lose you again. Not like this. Sierra's radio crackled. Detective Valdez. What's your status? She keyed the mic, never taking her eyes off him. Following up on evidence. We'll report back within the hour. Copy that. Come on, she said to Rafe. Let's get out of here before the explosion cut her off. Not big, just enough to bring down what was left of the warehouse's east wall. Sierra felt Rafe's arm around her waist, pulling her backward as debris rained down where they'd been standing. Move, he shouted over the noise. They ran for the bike, Sierra's mind racing. The explosion had been timed. Someone had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to scare us, she said as they reached the Harley. Not kill us, scare us. Working yet? Rafe asked, starting the engine. Sierra looked back at the burning building where her name was carved in charcoal, thought about the flat tires and spray-painted camera. Someone was orchestrating this whole thing, playing them like puppets. No, she said, climbing on behind him. It's pissing me off. Rafe's laugh was lost in the roar of the engine as they rode back toward town, but Sierra barely heard it. She was thinking about poetry and fire and the way predators like to play with their prey. The game was just getting started. The Desert Rose Motel looked like it had seen better decades. Neon sign flickering, paint peeling, the kind of place that asked no questions and expected cash up front. This is where you're staying? Sierra asked as Rafe parked the bike outside room 12. It's got a bed and a lock on the door. That's all I need. He pulled off his helmet, dark hair messy from the wind. Besides, 5-star hotels don't usually welcome guys like me. Guys like you? He gestured at his worn leather jacket, the bike, the small backpack that held everything he owned. Drifters, trouble magnets, men who leave. The words hung in the desert air between them. Sierra felt the weight of their history, the careful distance they'd been keeping since he came back to town. You can't stay here, she said, not with some lunatic targeting you. And you can't go home alone, not with some lunatic targeting you. He looked at her seriously. We're safer together. Sierra's pulse quickened. Alone, in a motel room, with the man who'd been haunting her dreams for 3 years. That's not appropriate. I'm a police officer. And I'm a suspect. His mouth quirked up at the corner. Scandalous. Rafe, Sierra. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes. Someone's playing games with both of us, using our past against us, trying to get us exactly where they want us. You really want to make their job easier by splitting up? He had a point. She hated that he had a point. 1 room, she said finally. 2 beds. And this is purely professional. Of course, he agreed, but his eyes held too much heat for professional. The room was small and dated, but clean. 2 queen beds separated by a nightstand, a tiny bathroom, a window that faced the parking lot. Sierra set her badge and service weapon on the dresser, immediately regretting the gesture. It felt too much like settling in. You hungry? Rafe asked. Diner next door does decent burgers. I should call this in. Report to my captain. And tell him what? That someone's stalking you. So you're holed up in a motel with the prime suspect? Rafe sat down on the bed closest to the window. That'll go over well. Sierra sank onto the other bed, suddenly exhausted. The day had been a roller coaster, the interrogation, the second fire, that explosion that could have killed them both. And through it all, Rafe, steady, infuriating, making her feel things she'd buried 3 years ago. Tell me about that night, she said quietly. The motel fire, the one where you saved those kids. Rafe's expression grew serious. Phoenix. 2 years ago, I was passing through, staying at this fleabag place on Route 60. Heard screaming around midnight. What did you do? What anyone would do. I went to help. He stretched out on the bed, hands behind his head. Building was old. Went up fast. Family on the second floor, mom to little kids. Stairwell was already blocked. Sierra watched his face as he talked. No false modesty. No hero complex. Just matter of fact, like risking his life was normal. Fire department got there eventually. But the kids, he shook his head. Sometimes you don't get to wait for backup. Is that why you drift? Looking for people to save? Maybe. Or maybe I just don't know how to stop moving. He turned to look at her. Until now, the air in the small room felt charged, electric. Sierra's carefully maintained professional distance was cracking like ice in spring. Rafe. I know, we can't. You've got a life here, a career. And I've got. He gestured at his backpack. This, not exactly stability material. You could be. If you wanted to be. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Rafe sat up slowly, staring at her. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe some things are worth staying for. Sierra's heart hammered against her ribs. Maybe some people are worth taking a risk on. Sierra. Her name was barely a whisper. I thought about you, she admitted. After you left. More than I should have. More than was smart. I thought about you too. Every damn day. He stood up, moved to sit on her bed, close enough to touch. But I told myself it was better this way. Better for you if I stayed gone. What if you were wrong? What if I wasn't? What if I'm exactly the kind of man who ruins everything good in his life? Sierra reached up, traced the line of his jaw with her fingertips. He closed his eyes at her touch, leaning into it like a man who'd been thirsty too long. What if you're not? She whispered. When he kissed her, it was like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. Soft and desperate, gentle and hungry. 3 years of wondering, of missing, of careful control, burning away like paper in flame. She pulled him down onto the bed, needing to feel the solid weight of him, needing to prove he was real and here and not just another dream. His hands tangled in her hair, and she arched against him, all her careful walls crumbling. This is crazy. She breathed against his mouth. Completely, he agreed, and kissed her again. They made love like the world was ending. Desperate and tender, fierce and sweet. Sierra had never let herself go like this. Never trusted anyone enough to be completely vulnerable. But with Rafe, it felt natural. Right. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the narrow motel bed, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. What scares you most? She asked into the comfortable darkness. This, he said simply, caring about somewhat more than I care about being free. And what scares you? He asked. Sierra was quiet for a long moment. Losing control. Letting someone matter so much that they could destroy me. And yet here we are. Here we are. His arms tightened around her. For what it's worth, Sierra, you are the first person I've ever met who makes me want to be the kind of man who stays. She tilted her head to look at him. And you are the first person I've ever met who makes me want to let go. They fell asleep wrapped around each other. Two people who'd spent their lives running from exactly this kind of connection. Sierra woke to cold sheets and the sound of a motorcycle engine fading into the distance. She sat up, heart pounding, and saw the note on the pillow where his head had been. Emergency call. Back soon. Trust me. But the engine noise was gone, and she was alone in the motel room with only the scent of leather and road dust to prove he'd been there at all. Her phone buzzed. Text message. Check the news. Your boyfriend's been busy. Sierra grabbed the remote with shaking hands. The morning news showed aerial footage of another fire, a storage facility on the other side of town, flames shooting into the dawn sky. And there, in the lower corner of the screen, a traffic camera had caught a motorcycle speeding away from the scene. A black Harley that looked exactly like Rafe's. Sierra's hands shook as she dressed. The news footage played on repeat in her mind, that motorcycle speeding away from another fire, looking exactly like Rafe's Harley. Her phone rang. Captain Rodriguez. Valdez, where the hell are you? Following up on the arson case, sir. Well, get down here now. We've got a witness who saw your boyfriend's bike at the storage facility fire this morning. Sierra's stomach dropped. Sir, I now detective. The line went dead. Sierra grabbed her badge and gun, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in her chest. There had to be an explanation. Rafe wouldn't have left her bed to go start a fire. He couldn't have, could he? An hour later, she sat in the police station briefing room, watching surveillance footage that made her heart sink. There was the motorcycle, clear as day, parked near the storage facility at 4:47 a.m. The rider's face was hidden by a helmet, but the bike was identical to Rafe's. Witness says she saw him pour something from a gas can before riding off, Detective Martinez said. Fire started 20 minutes later. Could be coincidence, Sierra said weakly. Could be, but coincidences don't usually write poetry about fire and leave it at crime scenes. Captain Rodriguez leaned back in his chair. Where's Morrison now? I don't know. You don't know? I thought you two were working together on this. Heat flushed up Sierra's neck. We were following leads, together, all night, at the Desert Rose Motel. Rodriguez's voice was flat. You think I don't know everything that happens in my town, detective? Sierra's career flashed before her eyes. Getting involved with a suspect was career suicide, and everyone in the room knew it. Sir, I can explain. You can explain by bringing Morrison in. Today. Rodriguez stood up. Before he burns down anything else. Sierra spent the next 2 hours driving around town, looking for a black Harley that seemed to have vanished into thin air. No one at the motel had seen him leave. The diner next door was closed. It was like he'd never existed at all, except for the ache in her chest and the memory of his hands on her skin. By afternoon, she was back at her desk, staring at the evidence files. Something nagged at her about the witness statement. Mrs. Patterson, 73 years old, lived across from the storage facility, claimed she'd been up making tea when she saw the motorcycle. Sierra pulled up Mrs. Patterson's address and drove over. The old woman answered the door in a floral housecoat, squinting through thick glasses. You're that police detective? Yes, ma'am. I wanted to ask you a few more questions about what you saw this morning. I already told your colleague everything. Sierra's pen stopped moving. My colleague? The other detective. Asian fellow. Very polite. Came by around noon. A chill ran down Sierra's spine. There was no Asian detective on her team. Ma'am, can you describe this man? Oh, medium height, dark hair, well dressed. Had a very nice smile. Mrs. Patterson frowned. Is something wrong, dear? Someone had been here before her. Someone posing as a police officer, maybe coaching Mrs. Patterson's story, making sure she'd identify Rafe's bike. Mrs. Patterson, I need you to think carefully. Are you absolutely sure it was a motorcycle you saw this morning, not a car or truck? The old woman hesitated. Well, it was still dark, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. I suppose it could have been. But the other detective said. What exactly did the other detective say? He showed me a picture of the motorcycle. Said it was definitely the one I saw. I didn't want to seem foolish. Sierra's heart pounded. Someone was systematically framing Rafe, using fake witnesses and planted evidence. But who? And why? Her phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. Having doubts about your boyfriend? Good. Smart girls don't trust drifters. Sierra stared at the message. Whoever was doing this knew about last night. Knew. She was starting to question Rafe's innocence. Another text. Check your email. I sent you a present. Sierra's work email had one new message from a generic account. No subject line, just a video attachment. She clicked play and immediately wished she hadn't. The video showed Rafe at a gas station, filling up a red gas can. The timestamp was 4:15 a.m. 30 minutes before the storage facility fire. He was alone, methodical, like someone who'd done this before. No, Sierra whispered, but the evidence was right there on her screen. Her office door opened. Detective? Sierra looked up to see Rafe standing in her doorway, still wearing yesterday's clothes, his hair disheveled, alive, real, and looking like exactly what he was, a suspect she'd slept with. Where have you been? She asked, hating how her voice shook. Following a lead. Someone called in a tip about Save It. Sierra turned her computer screen toward him. Care to explain this? Rafe stared at the video, his face going pale. Sierra, I can explain, can you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you left my bed to go start another fire. I didn't. He stepped into her office, closing the door behind him. Someone called me this morning, said they had information about who was really behind the fires, told me to meet them at the gas station. And you didn't think to wake me up? Tell me about it. I didn't want to put you in danger. And I thought, he ran a hand through his hair. I thought if I could prove my innocence, maybe we could have a real shot at this. Sierra wanted to believe him. Every instinct she had as a woman, as someone who'd held him in the dark, said he was telling the truth. But every instinct she had as a cop said the evidence was damning. The gas can, Rafe. You bought a gas can to fill up my bike. It was almost empty. He sat down across from her desk. Sierra, look at me. Really look at me. Do you honestly think I'd leave you to go commit arson? She studied his face, the tired eyes, the genuine confusion, the hurt that she was questioning him. I don't know what to think anymore. Think about last night, about what happened between us. Was that a lie? No, she said softly. But maybe it was a mistake. The words hit him like a physical blow. Don't say that. I compromised my case, my career, for someone who might be what? A killer? A monster? Rafe's voice was quiet, dangerous. Is that really what you think of me? Sierra's radio crackled. Detective Valdez, we need you at the Morrison scene, now. What Morrison scene? She asked. His motel room. There's been another development. Sierra looked at Rafe, saw the resignation in his eyes. Come with me, she said, voluntarily. Let's sort this out. He stood up slowly. And if we can't sort it out, then I'll have to arrest you. The Desert Rose Motel was crawling with police cars when they arrived. Captain Rodriguez met them in the parking lot, his face grim. We got an anonymous tip, he said. Found these in Morrison's room. He held up evidence bags. More poetry, written in Rafe's handwriting. And underneath the papers, a collection of photographs. Pictures of Sierra, at work, at home, walking to her car. Dozens of them, taken over weeks, maybe months. I've never seen those before in my life, Rafe said. But Sierra was staring at one photograph in particular. Her, coming out of the diner 3 years ago. The night she'd met him. The night that was supposed to be random, chance, fate. You were watching me, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Even then, you were watching me. Sierra, no, I swear to you, Rafe Morrison, you're under arrest, Captain Rodriguez said. You have the right to remain silent. As they cuffed him, Rafe's eyes never left Sierra's face. I didn't do this, he said. Someone's setting me up, setting us both up. Sierra watched them put him in the back of a patrol car, her heart breaking and hardening at the same time. The evidence was overwhelming. The case was closed. So why did she feel like she was missing something important? That night, alone in her apartment, Sierra spread out all the case files on her kitchen table. Something about the timeline bothered her. The witness statements, the planted evidence, the photographs that went back 3 years. She picked up the first piece of poetry, the one from Mickey's bar, studied the handwriting again, really looked at it. The letters were perfect, too perfect. Sierra grabbed one of Rafe's real journal pages from evidence, the one he'd given her during the interrogation, compared them side by side under her desk lamp. The fake poetry was flawless, every letter precisely formed, like someone had spent hours practicing. But Rafe's real writing was messier, more urgent. The R's were different. The spacing was wrong. Son of a bitch, she whispered. Someone had been studying Rafe's handwriting for years, learning to copy it perfectly, planning this frame job for a very long time. Her phone rang, unknown number. Hello, Sierra? The voice was male, familiar in a way that made her skin crawl. Who is this? Someone who's been watching you for a very long time. Someone who knows you better than you know yourself. What do you want? I want you to understand that Rafe Morrison is exactly where he belongs. And soon, you'll be exactly where you belong too. The line went dead. Sierra stared at her phone, pieces of the puzzle finally clicking into place. This wasn't about Rafe at all. This was about her. And whoever was behind it had been planning this for 3 years. Sierra barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Rafe's face as they put him in handcuffs, heard that voice on the phone promising she'd be exactly where she belonged. At dawn, she drove to the station, her mind racing through 3 years of case files. Someone had been watching her, planning this elaborate frame job. But who? And why target her specifically? Detective Valdez? Officer Thompson appeared at her desk. You've got a visitor. Says it's about the Morrison case. Sierra looked up to see a man in his 40s, well-dressed, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Something about his face nagged at her familiar, but she couldn't place it. Detective, I'm Dr. James Patterson. I think we need to talk about Rafe Morrison. Patterson. The name clicked. You're related to Mrs. Patterson, the witness? His smile was gentle, apologetic. My mother. I'm afraid she hasn't been entirely truthful about what she saw. Sierra's pulse quickened. What do you mean? May we speak privately? They went to interview room B. Dr. Patterson sat down carefully, like a man carrying a heavy burden. My mother has been struggling with dementia for the past year, he said quietly. Her memory comes and goes. Some days she's perfectly lucid, others. He shook his head. Someone came to see her yesterday. Not a police officer. A man who knew exactly how to manipulate her confusion. Can you describe him? About my height, dark hair. Very charming. He spent over an hour with her, showing her pictures, helping her remember what she'd seen. Dr. Patterson's jaw tightened. When I arrived for our weekly lunch, she was very excited about helping the police catch a dangerous man. Sierra's heart pounded. Dr. Patterson, did this man leave his name? He did, actually. Said his name was David. David Morrison. The room spun. Morrison. Same last name as Rafe. Detective? Are you all right? Sierra was already moving, grabbing her files, her car keys. Dr. Patterson, I need you to make an official statement. Everything you just told me, of course. Detective, is Rafe Morrison innocent? I think so. And I think I've been an idiot. 20 minutes later, Sierra burst into the county jail's visitor area. I need to see Rafe Morrison, now. The guard looked skeptical. Ma'am, visiting hours don't start for this is police business. Life or death, now. They brought Rafe to the visitor room in shackles. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Dark circles under his eyes, his usual confidence replaced by weary resignation. Sierra. His voice was carefully neutral. Come to gloat? Come to apologize. She sat down across from him, the bulletproof glass between them like a wall of everything she'd gotten wrong. Rafe, I need you to listen carefully. Do you have any family? Brothers? Cousins? Anyone with the last name Morrison? His brow furrowed. My brother David. But he's been dead for 5 years. Tell me about him. Why does this matter? Just tell me, please. Rafe was quiet for a moment. David was complicated. 2 years older than me, but always jealous that I was Dad's favorite. He was smart, charming when he wanted to be, but there was something dark in him. Started fires as a kid, hurt animals. Rafe's voice dropped. When we were teenagers, he became obsessed with this girl in our town, Jenny something. When she rejected him, he burned down her family's barn. Sierra's blood ran cold. What happened to him? He followed Jenny to college, stalked her for months. When she got a restraining order, he snapped, tried to burn down her dorm with her inside. Rafe's hands clenched into fists. He died in that fire. I thought that was the end of it. Rafe. Sierra leaned forward. What if your brother didn't die in that fire? What if he survived and has been planning revenge on you for 5 years? That's impossible. I identified the body myself. Bodies can be switched. Dental records can be falsified, especially if someone has medical knowledge and connections. Sierra's mind raced. Your brother blamed you for his problems, didn't he? For being the favorite. For having the freedom he never had? Rafe went very still. You think David's alive? You think he's the one doing this? I think he's been watching me for 3 years, ever since that night we met. I think he followed you here, saw us together, and decided to destroy both our lives. Sierra pressed her palm against the glass. And I think he's not done yet. Her phone buzzed. Text message. Time for the final act. Riverside Warehouse District. Pier 7. Come alone, or your boyfriend burns with the building. You have 1 hour. Sierra showed Rafe the phone. His face went white. Don't go, he said. Call for backup. Surround the place, he'll disappear. And next time, he might actually kill you to frame me for it. Sierra stood up. I have to end this. Sierra, wait. But she was already walking away, already planning. 1 hour to save Rafe, catch a killer, and maybe, if she was very lucky, survive, to apologize properly for not trusting him. The Riverside Warehouse District was a maze of abandoned buildings and empty lots. Pier 7 sat at the end of a long, cracked road, surrounded by nothing but shadows and the sound of water lapping against concrete. Sierra parked 2 blocks away, checked her weapon, and approached on foot. The warehouse looked empty, but light flickered in the windows. Candlelight or fire, she couldn't tell. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the smell of gasoline was overwhelming. Hello, Sierra. She spun around. A man stepped out of the shadows. Rafe's height, Rafe's build, but his face was different. Older, scarred on one side from old burns, but the eyes were the same storm gray as his brother's. David Morrison, I presume. He smiled. Very good, detective. Though I prefer my new name these days. Amazing what reconstructive surgery and a few forged documents can accomplish. Why? Sierra kept her hand near her weapon. Why frame your brother? Why target me? Because Rafe has everything I never could have. Freedom, respect, women who fall for his wounded poet act. David's voice turned bitter. And you were supposed to be mine. Sierra's skin crawled. I don't even know you. But I know you. I've been studying you, learning your patterns, your weaknesses. That night at the diner wasn't chance, Sierra. I arranged that whole meeting. I wanted to see what was so special about you that my brother couldn't stop talking about you in his sleep. He never mentioned me to you because you were supposed to be dead. David laughed. Sleep talking, detective? Rafe's always been a vivid dreamer. For 3 years, he's dreamed about you, called your name, described every detail of that one perfect night. His eyes glittered with madness. I decided I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. Sierra realized with growing horror that she was looking at a man who had spent 3 years obsessing over her, planning this elaborate revenge. Where's Rafe? Safe. For now. David gestured deeper into the warehouse. He's in the back room, tied up, but unharmed. Of course, that could change depending on your cooperation. What do you want? I want you to choose. Rafe dies in a fire that looks like an accident while trying to escape police custody. Or, his smile turned predatory. You come with me, disappear. Let everyone think you ran away with a suspect, ruined your own career for love. Either way, Rafe's life is destroyed. Sierra's hand moved toward her gun. David was faster, pulling out a modified flare gun. I wouldn't. One shot from this and the whole place goes up. Your boyfriend with it. You're insane. I'm practical. I've planned this for years, Sierra. Every detail, every contingency. The poetry, the handwriting practice, the planted evidence. I even had plastic surgery to look more like Rafe Insurance, in case anyone saw me at the crime scenes. Sierra looked around the warehouse, noting the placement of gasoline cans, the strategic piles of kindling. How do I know Rafe's really alive? David pulled out a phone, played a video. Rafe, bound to a chair in what looked like a back office, very much alive and very angry. Make your choice, detective. Clock's ticking. Sierra raised her hands slowly. Okay, you win, but I want to see him first. I want to say goodbye. How touching. Fine, but any tricks and I light this place up. David led her through the warehouse toward the back offices. Sierra counted her steps, memorized the layout, looked for anything she could use as a weapon. In the office, Rafe was tied to a metal chair, duct tape over his mouth. When he saw her, his eyes filled with relief and terror. Hello, brother, David said conversationally. Look who came to save you. Sierra knelt beside Rafe's chair, her hands working at the ropes behind his back while she talked. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have trusted you. Touching reunion, David said. But time's up. Say goodbye, detective. Actually, Sierra said, standing up, I have a better idea. She grabbed the metal desk lamp and swung it at David's head in one fluid motion. He stumbled backward, the flare gun discharging into the ceiling. Sparks rained down on the gasoline-soaked floor. Run, Sierra shouted, cutting the last of Rafe's bonds with her pocket knife. They ran as the warehouse exploded into flames behind them. David's screams echoed through the building as fire consumed his carefully laid trap. Outside, safe in the parking lot, Sierra and Rafe held each other as fire trucks arrived. David's body would be found in the ruins, this time truly dead. I'm sorry, Sierra said into Rafe's shirt. I should have believed you. You did believe me, when it mattered most. He pulled back to look at her. Question is, what happens now? Sierra looked at the burning warehouse, thought about the paperwork, the explanations, the career she'd almost destroyed. Then she looked at Rafe alive, real, hers if she wanted him. Now she said, we figure out what comes next. 3 days later, the official reports were filed. David Morrison had died in his own arson trap while trying to frame his brother. Rafe was cleared of all charges. Sierra faced a formal review but kept her job barely. She found Rafe at the Desert Rose Motel, packing his single backpack. Her heart sank. Leaving already? He looked up, those gray eyes searching her face. I figured it was time. Case is closed. Your reputation's intact. Mostly. No reason for me to stick around. What if there was a reason? Rafe straightened slowly. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe I'm tired of playing it safe. Maybe I want to take a chance on something dangerous. Sierra stepped closer. Maybe I want to take a chance on you. Sierra, I mean it. Stay. Not forever, if that's too scary, but stay long enough to see what this could be. Rafe cupped her face in his hands. You sure? Because once I put down roots, I don't know how to pick them back up. Good, she said, and kissed him. I was hoping you'd say that. 6 months later, Sierra woke up to the sound of a motorcycle engine in her driveway. She smiled and rolled over, but the bed beside her was empty. Panic flickered through her until she saw the note on the pillow. Gone for coffee and donuts. Back in 20 minutes. This time, I promise I'm not running away. She heard the engine shut off, heard his key in the front door. Rafe appeared in the bedroom doorway with a box of donuts and 2 cups of coffee, his dark hair messy from the helmet. Morning, beautiful, he said, setting breakfast on the nightstand. Sleep well? Better, Sierra said, pulling him back into bed. When you're here, he kissed her, soft and sure and full of promise. Drive fast, poet, she whispered against his mouth. But don't ever drive away again. Deal, he said. But only if you ride with me sometimes. Outside, the desert sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and fire. And for the first time in her life, Sierra wasn't afraid of getting burned.